The word priority has an interesting history. It started off in ancient Latin with the word prior, which means first. And then it went from there to medieval Latin, prioritas. And then from there to the Old French, priorité. And finally it landed in the form that we know today in English, priority. And along the way, it picked up another meaning besides just first, and that is most important. So we now know the word priority today to mean the first and most important. That's what it means. Now, what's interesting is that traditionally the word priority had no plural form. It was a noun that had only the singular form. There was no plural. Which, when you think about it, makes perfect sense, right? And there can only be one first thing on the list. There can only be one thing that's the most important. A plural form of the word would be a logical self-contradiction. It would be internally inconsistent. So there was never any need for a plural form of a word, so no plural form ever existed. And then the 20th century. And wouldn't you know it, somewhere about the middle of the century, a plural form of the word emerged, priorities. And that was a disaster. That was a disaster for all of us, because our lives suddenly became about juggling all of our priorities, all the priorities in your life. Your marriage is a priority, your husband or your wife. Your kids, they're a priority too. Well, your job is also a priority, and your well-being is a priority. Your friendships are also a priority. Your financial well-being is a priority. Your recreation time and your leisure, that's also a priority. Your work-life balance is a priority. And somehow juggling all these priorities became what life was all about. And don't get me wrong, all those things are important. I mean, there's no question we have to pay attention to all those things. They're all things that we need to focus on and get right. But can they all be first? Can all of those things simultaneously be the most important? And then, of course, what happened was that all kinds of things that have no business being on the list at all suddenly also became priorities. There are 10 things on your desk at work, and they're all priorities. In fact, being a team player, doing a little extra work off the clock just to sort of pull everybody together, that's also a priority. And your kids' soccer game and band practice and scout project, they're also all priorities. And being a good student is also a priority. And the government people and the politicians tell you what are the important things in life that you need to do, that's your priority. And the corporations and the advertisements also tell you the things that you need to buy in order to be happy, which is also a priority. And on and on and on. And suddenly, when the word priority became a plural, priorities, the world seems to just leave no end to dumping more and more things on your plate that are supposed to be priorities. And the problem is, all these priorities are now at war with one another. They're all fighting for your attention. They're all screaming which one can be the loudest all the time, and you're constantly juggling these things. And the war of all those competing priorities, the battleground is your life. Your life is the battleground for those competing priorities. And not just your life, not just your time and your money and your attention and your energy. Your very identity is the battleground of those priorities. Who you are, why you're here, where are you going? Those are identity questions. And those identity questions are the battleground of all those competing identities, because your identity gets scattered in every direction by competing priorities. You want to be a good wife, a good husband? Better get your priorities straight. You want to be a good parent or a good son or daughter? Only if you get your priorities straight. You want to be a good friend, a good neighbor? You better get those priorities straight. You want to be a good person at work, a co-worker, a productive employee? You better get those priorities straight. You want to be a citizen, a taxpayer, a member of society? Only if you get your priorities straight. and on and on and on. And when your identity, who you are, why you're here, where you're going, when those identity questions are at the mercy of competing priorities, each one screaming, each one a crisis, your identity gets torn in every direction. Now you can't answer the question anymore. Who am I? Where am I going? Why am I here? Those questions suddenly become a turmoil, and you're uncertain about it, and you no longer can answer the question, who am I? Right there. Now you can guess who's behind all this. Who wants you to forget your identity? Who wants you to be confused about who you are, why you're here, where you're going? Who wants that to be scattered and fragmented? The word diablos, diabolical, devil, it literally means to scatter, to fragment. And he's exactly the one who wants your identity to be scattered and fragmented in every direction. Every minute a little something different. The father of lies loves to confuse us with words, and turning the word priority into the plural, priorities, one of his cleverest ideas. But our Father in heaven is not about to let the father of lies have his way. Our Father in heaven has sent a rescue mission to retrieve your identity. And the rescue mission is headed up by none other than his own Son, who he sent into the world in order to save our identities. And today is the day that rescue mission starts. In the Gospels, in all four Gospels, the very first thing that happens in all four of them in Jesus' adult ministry is his baptism. His baptism is the first thing in all four Gospels, and that's not a coincidence. That's not an accident. That's God's rescue mission to come back and bring you back to your identity. Because in his baptism, Jesus' identity is revealed, and your identity also is revealed. Those beautiful words that we heard at the end of today's reading, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." Those words were not just for him. They're also for you. That's your identity. That's Jesus' identity, and in your baptism, you share his baptism and share his identity. Those words are now spoken to you on the day of your baptism and restore your fragmented identity. You are a son of God. You are a daughter of God. With you, God is well pleased. And you notice that God now restores the right order of things. See, what the evil one wanted to do was to get priorities first and let the priorities drive and fragment your identity. God gets that right again. Identity comes first. But that's why the rescue mission starts with your identity, because that's the important thing. That's where it all begins. Jesus' identity now becomes your identity. What he is, in his very nature, as the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, you now become by adoption also son and daughter of God. And then from that, from your identity, flows your priority. Singular. Priority, not priorities. And you have only one priority, and that's to live your life in authenticity as a son, as a daughter of God. It's your only priority. That's the only thing you have to do every single day. And we learn how to do that by watching how Jesus lived his identity. He lived his authentic identity as the Son of God with truth and with clarity. With truth and with clarity. And that's your priority. And now all these other questions start coming in place. How do you live as a husband, as a wife, as a family man or woman? You live as Jesus did, authentically, as a son or daughter of God in truth. Truth. How do you live as a neighbor, as a friend, as Jesus did? Authentically, you live out your status as a son or daughter of God in perfect truth. How do you live as a citizen, as a worker, as a member of society? As Jesus did. As Jesus did. Authentically living your identity as a son or a daughter of God in truth. And we can also see more clearly all those things that shouldn't have been on the list at all. All the ways that the world wants to use you, wants to reduce you to a thing, an object, a thing, something that is supposed to be used for somebody else's purposes, for somebody else's benefits, for somebody else's profit, and thrown away. And now you can see that those things have no claim at all on a son or daughter of God. They have nothing to say to you. They have no priority in your life. And you can walk away from them completely confidently because you know you are a son, daughter of God. And all the rest of that stuff just goes back into the nothingness that it was from the very beginning. Your identity comes first. And from your identity flows your priority. And the next step is your destiny. From your identity flows your priority, and your priority to your destiny. And that's the rest of the story. See, the rescue mission isn't over, because you know we're going to make a mess of it. We're going to forget our identity. We're going to forget our priority. We're going to get it all screwed up. So the rescue mission has just started, and bringing us from identity to priority to destiny is what Jesus is going to be doing for the next year. It's going to end up going to a cross, and then it's going to go to an empty tomb. But that's for down the road. We start at the beginning. We start with identity. And your identity is now secure. Your identity is absolutely secure. And it was secured for you on the day of your baptism, the baptism you shared with Jesus' baptism. And on that day, you may not remember it, you may not have heard it, but I promise Jesus said to you exactly the same words he said to his son. You, he said, are my beloved child. With you, I am well pleased.